Hey everyone, hey and welcome back to yet another episode of Battle Rap Resume. This is your host Tom Quee. Thank you so much for listening. Before we get to the day's guest, please follow the show at Battle Rap Resume if you want to know what new episodes are coming out, if you want to know about news, and I'll retweet old stuff and get in contact with me there as well. You can also get in contact with me, battlerapresume@gmail.com. Go to our Patreon page if you want to help support the show. That's patreon.com/battlerapresume. Two main tiers. The sort of the entry level tier gets you access to loads of exclusive material, including a monthly Patreon-only show called Resume Review, where I read the emails you send in at battlerapresume@gmail.com and do loads of other extra stuff. And if you want to donate a little bit more, you can listen to Battle Resume episodes weeks, maybe even months before they come out. All the money goes straight back into the series. And yeah, I'm really grateful. So check us out on patreon.com/battlerapresume. Please subscribe. Give us a review on iTunes. You've heard me say these things millions of times at the start of the episode, and I appreciate your patience. Maybe you've skipped through. I often skip through the intro pod ads as well, but we'll get to today's guest. Very, very excited to have this guy on. Obviously had him on before. Esteemed battler, rapper, slam poet. It's Harry Baker. Harry, how's it going, man?
Hello. Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
I have to ask this question off the off. I'm deadly curious. Do you now get free Deliveroo for life?
Sadly, no. Sadly, no. I found out there is such thing as a Deliveroo gold card, much like the famed Nando's black cards, which rumours went around, but I wasn't offered one. So who knows?
That's a great shame, because I mean, some people might not be aware, maybe overseas listeners, or maybe just our UK friends as well. I was on Viewpoint a while ago, maybe like a month ago or something, and it became almost a meme now. I don't know if you've noticed. Everyone's posting asking the same question. People were saying, "Is that Harry Baker on the Deliveroo ad? Like, is that him?" sort of thing. And I sort of seen that, and in the back of my head, I was aware that Harry Baker Deliveroo sort of thing. But I think I was watching The Simpsons on Channel 4 about 2 weeks ago, and the advert came on, and I just heard that that spoken word voice that so many poems that I adore, like that same tone coming through. And I was curious at first. You didn't write the poem, did you?
No, so I was asked in as a voiceover artist, so it was like about 2 hours of work. But because obviously it's gone on TV, it's the thing I've had the most messages about. I think partly because it's not what you'd expect to hear me. So I've had a lot of texts from friends whose mums have asked them, "Is that your mate Harry?" But yeah, so I was just in the voiceover, and then in the studio I rewrote a couple of lines that felt easier to say in my kind of rhythm. But yeah, in my mind, I was there as a voiceover rather than being commissioned to do a piece. I don't know what the technical difference is.
Yeah. It kind of feels a little spoken wordy in a sense. Is that fair to say? Like the way it's sort of written?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's part of why they asked me to do it. I don't know if it's because spoken word has got this in vogue thing, or just advertising thinks it's quite hip and whatever. I don't know what they're trying to go for. But yeah, it was that weird thing, because I don't watch much TV. Obviously, the stuff I do watch is normally online. So I've not yet come across my voice in that kind of context. Obviously, when it came out, I checked it online and listened to it. So yeah, it's interesting finding out where it's been put.
It's awesome, man. Genuinely, I was very, very happy for you just that it came about. And it is just I don't know, it's quite a nice, it is kind of eulogizing food in quite a, quite convincing way. Like sometimes adverts can make, a can of Coca-Cola seem like the greatest thing in the world sort of thing. But this just gives food an authenticity. But we're here for bars, we're here for puns, not Peking duck and stuff like that. But, regardless. So the first thing I want to talk about since we last chatted was, a clash that when it got announced, people were wildly excited about this. It was such an original idea with two brilliant writers at its helm. You and Ogmios doing the Grime clash.
Yes.
I rewatched the battle about an hour ago just to refresh it, and I think one of the comments sums it up best when it laments the fact that Ogmios sounds like a Dalek.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Partly when your name is often the first thing suggested yearly when April Fool's comes around, you can take that as one of two ways. Either you're seen as the pinnacle of outside the box creative thinking, or you are just a joke.
Right.
But I think, it was interesting because it was set up as this kind of what would this be like idea of me and Ogmios on Grime. But like at the time, it was definitely the one that I put the most work into, just because I was so aware of so many people I know who are absolutely fantastic, and I didn't want to be, taking the piss out of the art form itself, but also wanted to kind of keep some of the tongue-in-cheek stuff that I have and that kind of thing. So I mean, I was quite not upset, but obviously disappointed when it came out and the sound quality was what it was, because on the day at the time, to get a reload in a Grime context is a wonderful feeling. And so, yeah, it was a bit of a shame that kind of translating onto Cam, the venue just wasn't great for it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was difficult, wasn't it? Because, I mean, were you aware, like, after the battle had happened, did anyone have any inkling that it was going to be slightly marred, or...?
I mean, partly... No, I mean, not to that extent. I mean, it did come out on pay-per-view, and it was like that. But it was, the assumption was they'd be able to clean that up. And then when it came out on the YouTube channel, it wasn't much different. But also, I mean, that event was a bit of a weird one because it was April Fool's, because it was up in Liverpool, I think. A lot of the staff and battlers were just having a great time and were quite drunk. And so... like, it just seemed like it wasn't the top priority to sort all of that out. And it's just one of them things, I think with the bigger events, there's a lot more, care taken into. I mean, it's just interesting with the on-beat ones, because it still feels like they're trying to find that balance, because the ones from, I think it was Checkpoint last year, were perfect. And, back in the day, Bamalam and Dialect was brilliant, and every now and then it's there. But even with the Keeping It 140, some of the new ones that come out is still quite hard to hear. So I think it's not as simple as if we get the right mics and get the levels right, it works. I think it's still trying to find that balance of how to do it.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, I know a lot of people don't want to see a positive word said about Chronicle, but I don't know if you watched any other Words of Weapons, but some of the balances, some of the sound production in those battles are incredible. Like they're the best the sounding battles ever. Like the Future versus Raptor. Like there's even reverb on the beat, and it sounds live, and you know what I mean. It doesn't sound messy, because I know what you mean. Even like Afghan Dan P Soldier example. So it's an interesting watch, but it's pretty muddy. Like, it's not, there's no clarity there. But I mean, it is a shame as well, because the writing from both of you guys is brilliant. I saw that on Reddit you posted all the lyrics, which was incredibly useful. And there's some awesome stuff there. I mean, writing for this kind of grime environment where you can't be as languishing as you like to be with the wordplay, was this a new sort of challenge? Yeah, definitely.
So one of the on-beat battlers I admire the most is Press One, just because he's able to fit in punchlines in quite a classic battle rap style, but also leave enough space around them for them to hit home and land and get a reaction and carry on, and and still sound good on the beat. I think that's the real balance of, do you either try and keep this flow and impress people that way, or try and get enough of a reaction from something that you can get a reload that you can then try again. Because I think when it's a cappella, you can kind of gauge the crowd, pause for reaction, the same way that, with a spoken word piece or anything like that. And so I was just aware that I needed to practice a lot, so that if anything throws you off slightly, it's still ingrained in your head. You can't take a couple of seconds to remember what the next bit is, because you've got to keep up with the beat. So yeah, it was partly that. It was partly not wanting to look like I was trying to out-grime any grime rappers. Like, I kind of wanted it to very much be, this is still me trying to do, punchlines and that kind of thing and fit it in. Because I've seen, one of my favorite in Because It's Awful kind of things is, I can't remember the name. I think it's JR Slander versus Chris Lees.
Yeah.
And when it's just that whole thing of, I'm going to do double time better than you do to show that it's easy, and then being rubbish at it, just like, is one of the worst things, because it shows that it is a hard thing to do. And like, even like in other battles, like every Jay Dillon battle I've watched recently, their opponent tries to do an impression of Jay Dillon, and does what he does not quite as well. And I just think that then gives credit to the original thing for being good at it. I mean, the only exception I think is Gemini versus Dialect, where he absolutely kills it on Grime in quite an understated way, because it's Gemini and he's amazing, and doesn't even say, now I'm going to try this thing. He just kind of brings it out. So I didn't want to be like, this has been set up as a joke, but I'm going to show everyone that actually I can do Grime really, really well. I kind of wanted to have enough get out clauses in case it went slightly badly, to show that I was doing it for fun, still taking it seriously, but very much trying to meet the clash where it was.
And you killed it, man. I mean, it was fantastic. Like, even like the sound doesn't bother me as much as most people. I kind of get over it to a certain extent and just enjoy for what it was. I think especially your third, when you sort of employ the legacy of the Grime. You're talking about, you got the Brucey and the Bamalam quotes with the vegan stuff. It's very dense.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed writing it and stuff like that. I wanted to kind of give a shout out to other people. What's interesting is, I know it's not out yet, in the rematch with Ogmios, we have one round at the end where we both do basically 32 bars of the Grime stuff. And so I kind of just pick out 8 bars from various verses that I did. And, because I think various people had heard it before, fine. Ogmios redid one of his rounds. And I think because on the day it didn't really come across, it felt like people were hearing it for the first time, and because it was quite dense, it just kind of caught the room and people jumped on it. And so that was a real, like, as if it was a new thing, it kind of caught the momentum. So I mean, it'll be interesting. I've only seen it on the pay-per-view as one angle, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes out on cam, because I think in the rematch he very much did well in the Grime bit, possibly because he practiced a bit more, I don't know, but yeah, on the day it felt great to be able to basically not embarrass myself too much.
Yeah, man. It's genuinely really compelling stuff. But we'll push on. We'll get back to the Ogmios battle, as you say, because there was the rematch that went down. Next up, though, was you teaming up with Crafty, a great friend of the show. Crafty's been on many times, obviously a brilliant writer in his own right. I mean, you guys go back a fair bit, right? You're kind of like, you've known each other for a while outside of this thing.
Yeah, so he joined. We were both at Bristol Uni, but he joined when I was in Germany, and so I was in my third year, and he kind of took over the Bristol Uni Poetry Creative Writing Society, which when I started uni, I went along to because I was quite up for it, and it was genuinely more of a like sharing group for flash fiction for like 5 people in a pub, which like absolutely brilliant for that purpose, but that wasn't what I was looking for. So I kind of did most of my stuff in Bristol outside of the uni scene, and actually really enjoyed getting to see the town in that way. But by the time I came back from Germany, he'd kind of been in touch, said he was into the battles and putting on events. And by the time I kind of finished uni, so after a year of him putting on events, there's a good 100 people turning up month in, month out, excited about spoken word. So really like fantastic what he's done for that. And he now kind of carries on these events as a kind of standalone thing. So I got to know him through that. And so when that card came up, because it was with the Roundhouse, it's kind of done as a poets VMCs type setup. So
it's like a spoken word mecca, isn't it? The Roundhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, they were kind of trying to fit it around that. And so, but yeah, it's really fun because I loved when the 2-on-2 tournament came around however many years ago. It was really fun seeing the matchups and seeing how people work together. But I kind of knew from the start it would be fun to write with Danny in that context. Partly because I love his writing, his battling style. I think he's very good, but also like we've hung out and gone to the pub together, and it's quite easy when you know that you get on with someone that you can kind of bounce off each other, and there's not that awkwardness of wondering if someone comes up with an idea and you don't really like it, is it awkward type thing. We can kind of tell each other what we liked and what we didn't, which I think is quite a healthy thing when writing together.
And what you guys meant to, am I misremember this perhaps, you were meant to battle Rob Wilson and Juan, were you?
Yes, so that was going to be around a Christmas event, I think. And Juan couldn't do it for whatever reason, and then we tried to redo it, and then Rob couldn't do it for whatever reason, and it just kind of got lost. But yeah, so I mean, I'm sure that there's stuff written for that hidden away.
I mean, that could still go down. I think that would be great now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think since then, you know, Rob's obviously battled Big T.
Yeah.
Got better and better with everything. You know, Craft D has definitely got better, and in my opinion, you know, deserves a bigger opponents type thing. So yeah, I mean, there's still no reason why it can't happen.
And I mean, Shuffle, Marlowe, obviously, at any point in their career, really, they're gods. You know, I don't know if you've seen them versus P Soldier Matter done recently. Unbelievable. So, I mean, coming into this, quite a difficult opponent for, you know, they are the 2-on-2, the dictionary definition of battling 2-on-2, UK especially. For you guys' first collaboration to be against these guys, was that overwhelming in some senses, or?
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting thing, because I think stylistically, me and Craft D, we're both, you know, from the poetry world, have translated across. But in his battles, he's a bit more incisive than I am. He's very much happy to go in on someone's character flaws or personality or whatever, and kind of, which is probably the more traditional way of battling, right, other than just throwing stupid puns in front of someone. But it was interesting in the writing process, because I just think taking that approach with Shuffle and Marlowe is quite a risky strategy, because they're so lovable and so brilliant. And I just kind of was quite keen to have fun with them putting on a clash, you know, still make digs, still kind of reference different things. But I thought if we went in with 5 solid minutes of, you know, you're rubbish because of this, and this, and then they absolutely get the whole room on side being idiots and being brilliant at it, then I think that's quite tough. You know, that's why I think in Danny's battle so far, it worked really well against Liv Winter, against Jay Shaw. Coming up against Heretic, who's quite nice and quite likable, it's less effective. And so I think I was quite keen with Shuffle and Marlowe to have a level of self-awareness and quite a fun kind of thing. And actually that was really fun to write with Danny, and I think he enjoyed going back and forth. And there was like, I think in the end it was about 8 bars, but we'd written about 16 bars back to back of just like jokes about tipping, and I can't even remember where it came from, but like we were just like crying when we were writing that, knowing that it wouldn't really translate, whatever, but like it was fun to do. And I think it's quite a weird process writing for a battle by yourself, because you're getting in this weird headspace and you're trying to imagine how a room of people might react. So it's just quite fun writing with someone else and bouncing off each other. And also, you know, someone else is there. So, you know, we had like a Google Docs, and then he's sending other things, comes up with ideas. We work on each other's stuff and bounce it off. So it was a really enjoyable process to kind of work with. And obviously it means you get to be part of a Shuffler battle. And I was so glad, because it was a 1-rounder, I was really happy we could go first, because then I could genuinely just enjoy what they were saying and stand on stage grinning away, which I'm sure comes across.
Yeah, and I mean, surprisingly, really, if you saw this battle on paper, you wouldn't expect it. You guys are quite vicious in your first, like you do have the sort of tipping angle and that silly wordplay and all that, but you start off with religion. You talk about how Shuffle was sacked from their partnership. You dig into Shuffle scrabbling for money to be creative. I mean, talk to me about the whole Jason Mason thing. Oh man, that was just better in real life than it was in the battle. So I'm going to blame all of the viciousness on Danny, which isn't very cool, but I can pretend. The Jason Mason thing was such an elaborate setup, and the way it happened, I just didn't have the time to develop it into a big reveal punchline moment. But essentially, I made a fake account asking him to write a best man speech with the aim that it would be able to apply to Marlowe. And so with the thought that we could then use those lyrics against Marlowe, and then Shuffle would realise that he'd kind of written them. But because Shuffle was so kind of deadpan, he didn't give anything away on stage. It was just like a sort of nod sort of thing. And I just thought, again, it was really funny. But then also it was that weird thing of, you know, it's still like his side hustle, whatever. So
then kind of emailing him felt really weird and wanted to, so still like paid him for what it was. I mean, it wasn't much because he didn't write much, but yeah, it was that weird thing of knowing your opponent's the only person in the room who's going to fully understand what's going on, and you can't rely on a sort of, you know, Jefferson Price style reaction from them that gives the whole game away. So it's partly then, having done this quite like snaky, incisive people, I then felt like we had to make it a bit more fun and downplay it and that kind of thing. And so yeah, it was that weird thing. But again, it was just, I think because it was a one rounder, we thought we could try a couple of these different things. And I'm not sure how it came about, but again, we found it so funny in the build up, and then had that weird thing of, how are we going to explain this to a room of people?
Right. A room of spoken word fans as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, in general, that day, that the audience were great. And I think they're going to do another event in the Roundhouse this year. I have no idea who's on it, but I think generally it was a success. I mean, partly it was great because it was on a Wednesday night. And so maybe it's because it was the Roundhouse, but it just meant it started a lot closer to when it said it would. Then, you know, a weekend event where you just kind of, everyone rocks in and out. And so it's quite a densely packed evening by battle rap standards.
Yeah, it's. I mean, just to explain, the context of the Jason Mason thing. So Shuffle T has his own company where he sort of will write for people and give battle rap consultancy and shit like that. I mean, check it out. You know, it's awesome. I think that's, you know, Adam does really well off that and sort of thing. And you had paid him to write something for you as Jason Mason. I was thinking you should have went sort of Tom Riddle about it, and you should have done an anagram of like Pandolfini and Baker or something, like, you know. But I mean, it inevitably, yeah. And when they do, if they do a Roundhouse 2, I had Enigma on recently, and I realised how much I love Simon Mole.
Oh man, I was there. I was at Latitude. That was when my debut was meant to be. So I was there for that, chatting to him backstage. I mean, one, he's just so lovely. He's currently launched a resource which is like interactive word games for primary school kids. Like, he's just brilliant. But he is also like a proper like hip hop fan. So I think when it came out and the comments were kind of like, who's this nerdy poet guy trying to go up against Enigma? Like, he has as much love for the culture as anyone. But I thought he was brilliant in that battle, the way of kind of setting up the character of the therapist and whatever, diffusing everything, like really original, really cool idea that had it been done, you know, on a URL stage against the right opponent by the right person, people would be talking about it for years. So I thought he was fantastic. I'd love to see him have another go at it.
Yeah, me too. I remember after watching that battle as well, I did a bit of research on him, and I don't know if you remember, he has this poem about bread. He has a fantastic spoken word. I think you can find it. I think it's one of the first things that comes up. People need to Google Simon Mole. But yes, Simon Mole, this could be his glorious return. You know, I think really this would be great to see him put up against someone. But you know, nonetheless, Shuffle just do Shufflo, really, don't they? They have a really brilliant round that's not as kind of cohesive as their other stuff, but they just show. I love the fact they're rocking the sunglasses as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember they kind of said, it was probably just beforehand, that they had just like, because it was us, they just wanted to have a load of fun with it. And, you know, a lot of it was just a bit silly, but still incredibly performed and really, really good. And that kind of partly made me feel bad for the incisive stuff we did have, partly was quite relieved that we had enough of a mix of it that, you know, there wasn't so much discordance between the two sides of the battle, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic watch. Urge people to go back and check it out. It's doing quite well views wise, actually, so that's great. We got to the next battle. It was quite a long time between this battle and the next one getting uploaded. This was you versus Most Prob. You on King of the Ronalds, was this long overdue, or was it more a Most Prob thing, or? I spoke to them. Basically, I get on well with those because actually I didn't know Hulk. I just shamelessly mentioned Hulk in my pamphlet battle, whatever, and then, you know, felt a bit bad because I'd gone for like an easy punchline. But I knew Mickey from when he was in Don't Flop, and since then online, you know, seeing Hulk do his thing, like I really like what they do there. But it was partly Mickey tried to get me before and it hadn't worked out.
But I was never adverse to the idea. It was just a timing kind of thing. But then also, I think because it was, or maybe Hulk had messaged me about going on there, and I said, yeah, I'd be up for it with the right opponent at some point. Because I'd gone to see Most Prob against Pedro.
Right.
And that was the first KOTR event I'd gone to. And I think Bobby Rex battled that night. And it was really good fun. And it was in kind of northwest London, so fairly easy to get to. And I really enjoyed it. And I think by showing my face there, I maybe reminded them that I was up for it. And so they kind of messaged. And I mean, Most Prob, for whatever reason, has fallen out with Don't Flop, had said that it wouldn't happen there, but I was really up for battling him because it was going to happen on Don't Flop a couple of years ago, a couple of different times. It just never came together. So I really liked the idea, and then he was kind of saying that why not let's do it, because we'd been talking about doing a 2-on-2 together in Germany with Don't Let the Label You. They were kind of trying to set up this event because he'd been out there before, and we both speak a bit of German. It would have been really fun to try and kind of pull together. And so partly it was kind of saying, in the run up to that, this is an excuse to hang out. We could do this battle. And I just thought he's the perfect opponent to have on the kind of King of the Run stage, because I think he's really good, but also it will be fairly jovial, and I think the crowd would be on board. So I was really up for doing it. I mean, since then, he was going to battle Lavos, and he no-showed.
Yeah.
So after being away from battling so long, convincing himself to get back in it, starting to enjoy it, and then being disappointed like that, it may have put him off for life. So our 2-on-2 may never happen, but I was really glad I got to face him in his brief return, I guess. But yeah, it was really fun, and the crowd were amazing. They were so on board, particularly because the title match between Canell and Mackenzie had happened earlier in the day, and there had been like random people walking in off the street mouthing off, and I just kind of thought, I hope there's still a crowd who are up for it by the time we get to battle. But actually, I think because there'd been a bit of a ruckus, people had kind of calmed down, people were there on board. It was quite, from the start, quite punchline heavy, so I think that got people's attention. But it was genuinely really, really fun, and I had a brilliant time doing it.
I mean, pun heavy as well. Like, obviously, it's always pun heavy, but Most Prob seemed to kind of. This wasn't an Ogmi or Soul Most Prob. It wasn't even a Toucan Most Prob. This was a Harry Baker Most Prob.
Yeah, and this was a weird thing as well, because partly I was. So this and the Mark Grist Ice Cube battle.
Oh yes.
That was within the same week, and it was interesting because for both of them I was in regular contact with my opponent, so it was like already I feel like most of my battles have now gone from how can I beat this person to how can we put on a show together. But this was like another level, because in the Mark Grist thing we were genuinely sending each other our stuff to check that it was the right kind of tone, and basically that we weren't using the same puns. So on the day it was very much head to head, and with Most, like, it didn't have that same level, but there was this conspiracy that we're going to recreate various Pedro antics. So if I bring 2 hats and you throw one off, I'll have another one. If you rip off my t-shirt, I'll have another one. In the third round, let's both make loads of ear jokes. So it wasn't like we go through each other's material, but it was a level of, in the nobody is above Boyman arena, how do we also slightly clown on that idea? But yeah, I was really glad that it was also a really good battle, because I didn't want to go on to King of the Roundhouse for the first time and seem like I wasn't, respecting them. I wanted it to be good, but I also thought it was fun, this idea of playing with Most Prob. So I was really glad with how well it came across, and also how happy they were with it, because I think on cam it kind of captures that spirit of fun that they have at a lot of their events, but also has enough quality in it to kind of get through the antics if you don't like that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, it's great to see. Obviously, huge fan of both of you guys. Great to see you guys go toe to toe, and the crowd were really receptive to it, and a lot of kind of a lot of props, a lot of shirt tearing.
Yeah. I mean, too much. It's meant to tell
maybe.
To reveal another, and managed to rip both. So they're just slightly dishevelled looking for the second half of the battle. But I guess that's a risky take.
That's battle rap, bitch. You know, that's what happens. And during this time as well, as we say, the Ogmios battle went down, and you battled not only rematched Ogmios, but then did a freestyle against Tony. I was talking about the Og one first. Was this always kind of in the back of your head? We need to do this properly.
Yeah. So it was the day that our battle got announced. When the quality was just rubbish. It was partly for myself, so that I didn't get annoyed. I was like, how can we turn this into something good? What if we read it? Because I had the bars already, and it's not the same as like when you do an a cappella battle, the next day you wake up, you still know it, and it takes a while to get out. But like a week later, it's possibly a bit harder to structure together. Whereas like, because it had all been written on beat, you know, 3 months later, I could still have, if I had the first bar, you know, still do it fairly cohesively. So I kind of thought, if we've taken the time to write these, it's not a huge stretch to perform them again. That's not the hard work in terms of this context. And if it means that people who wouldn't have watched the other one can enjoy it. So I was up for doing a full rematch of the same material, potentially even, because it was on the day, I was kind of thinking, this battle's not getting a lot of love, maybe even take it down, re-upload it when it's better. That didn't happen, and Og kind of said, if we're going to redo it, we may as well have some fun with it, do it differently. So it was going to be just a one-off event in October or so, where we had the idea to do one round a cappella, one round hip-hop, one round grime, and then Og couldn't do it. So again, but I'd written for that, so I had most of this material. So when it came up that I was available for this small room session, we kind of planned to do that. And I think because I was currently on tour with the Harry and Chris stuff, in the show there's an element where I do some freestyling. I was really enjoying it. And it's partly Kruger came to one of our shows and kind of said, you should try out some freestyling. And I thought, if I've got a co-sign from Kruger, I could give it a go. But obviously, to make a freestyle debut against Tony D is fairly intimidating. But yeah, it was amazing getting to do it at the same event. And yeah, it's not come out yet, but in the venue, it got a good response. And it's one of them things, like, I feel like I'm at the point with my freestyling ability where when it goes well, you can still see the excitement in my eyes and the sort of relief. And I think because the freestyling that I've been doing with Chris is in the context of a comedy show, even when it goes wrong, it's quite funny for the audience. So again, it's partly just trying to push my boundaries, try something new, but also be aware that so much of it rides on if you can have some personality with it and it's not perfect, hopefully it still comes across that you're trying to have fun, which is why I was really glad I was going up against someone like Tony, because I knew that he'd be having fun with it as well. Whereas I think if I'd gone in straight away against Jay Short, he would have probably just, cut me down and might not have been as enjoyable.
That'd be a good match.
I mean, it's interesting now that I've done one and it's gone well. I think there's an opportunity in the future, and also, like, on a personal level, it's so much nicer to do because you don't have to worry about prepping for it.
Exactly.
So I would love, we'll see. But at the birthday event, if any notorious international freestylers are over, I'd love to try and get an extra battle on the side.
Oh shit. Okay, that's exciting, man. So we'll get to the battle. We're here for the crazy battle that no one can quite believe's on the card. I found out about this battle maybe about a month ago or so. I had Callum on the podcast, and after we recorded, we had a little chat, and he was going through, and I sort of said, bro, who's on the Checkpoint 4 card? Let me know. And some of them that I sort of heard on the grapevine, Tony D. Arsenal, Shocks, and Soul, obviously. And he just sort of almost flippantly said, Charlie Clips versus Harry Baker, and I couldn't help but laugh. I couldn't help but just kind of like burst out, like, in shock and glee. Like, this is one of those genius matchups that only Don't Flop would think about. I mean, when was this first offered? How did this come about?
So I I think because I do the kind of performing full time, there's been quite a few events. So the last 2 birthdays I've not been around, and it's been a bit of a shame. And so the Matter battle happened the week before, I think, and like still one of my favorite ones I've done to date. But again, it's not part of that same branding and push that the main birthday kind of events get. So I really wanted to be involved, and so Rowan just sent me a list of dates, and I was around for Checkpoint, so I kind of said I'll keep that weekend free. I love to do it. At that point, didn't know who it would be up against, so I kind of messaged him saying, you know, is Carter around? Is it possible to make that battle happen? Because it didn't the first time round, and he kind of said, I'll get back to you. But then I'd been chatting to Carter anyway, because we kind of just appreciate each other's work overseas. So whenever his battles come out or anything, we kind of chat a bit. And so he kind of said he didn't think he had enough holiday to take off or whatever reasons. So I was kind of talking with Rowan, and in the same breath where he said, I don't think Carter's going to happen, he said, but I don't think you're going to mind, you're battling Charlie Clips. And like, genuinely, to my shame, I kind of said, how do I know this isn't just you? Something you're going to screenshot to put on Viewpoint. Say, haha, Harry's fallen for this. And so I think I ruined...
Psycho lied.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he was obviously looking forward to the crazy reaction, and I was just a bit too skeptical. Which, you know, I should have more faith in the names that I deserve. And after a back and forth of him convincing me, I was like, amazing. Obviously, I would love to do that. But even then, it's a weird one because it wasn't announced for ages. So I was just kind of like sitting with this news, which like and like a lot of my friends who have kind of partly got into battling through me showing them stuff are then familiar with like a lot of the Don't Flop names because they come along to events, but trying to like convince them the level at which Charlie Clips is known is a bit of a weird one. So then it was like really exciting when I, again, like being on tour, when I got to stay with Heretic, talking to him about it, there's someone else to like share that kind of moment. And then when the first announcements came out, they hadn't mentioned it yet. So it was only when it actually like got announced, you know, a few days ago that I got to sort of know that it was definitely real and be like, okay, I can genuinely justify spending hours watching his battles and writing stuff now, because I just like was waiting for it to not happen for some reason. I'm so excited,
man. It's
very, very happy.
Prior to the announcement, were you a fan? Had you watched much of his stuff? Or
yeah, definitely. And again, it's that thing of I'd watched his UK battles, but also when he was on King of the Dot, and then, you know, the bigger names of him versus like Hollow the Don or Lux battle and that kind of stuff. And genuinely, like, yeah, huge fan. I loved him against, I think, O'Shea especially, because I was watching that in the run-up to battling O'Shea and just seeing how versatile he was there. But then also, like, I remember when I first watched him and Shotty, I hated it, and then was really happy watching the Quill battle because I thought that's far better. But kind of watching it back with the mindset of I'm going to battle him, like even the way he handled that and is able to just like throw in a couple of freestyles of, if you think you're winning, why are you talking through my rounds? Like, personality-wise, I think he's amazing, and I'm just quite happy to go head-to-head with him because, I don't know, it almost feels a bit similar to when I was facing O'Shea, in that he was obviously this legend, but had like a few battles where he was off form. And I kind of thought, as an opponent, like you always want your opponent to be good. You want to be slightly better than them, but you obviously want them to put on a show. And so I'd watched Ogmios versus O'Shea and almost felt like Og had broken him down so well that it like took away from his performance for me. And I kind of thought, against O'Shea, I just want like him to do his thing, I'll do my thing, and then it'll be fun. So I think for Charlie, I'm probably quite an enjoyable opponent because, you know, I'm not about to have a 5-minute argument over a coin toss or whatever it was with Shotty and that kind of thing. So hopefully he tries, but if he doesn't, then I can, you know, beat clips. If he does, then I feel like it'll be an amazing battle to be a part of.
It will. It's an incredible opportunity, you know, fully deserved. This guy's got 44 million views. He's one of the most popular battle rappers ever. His personality's off the charts, you know, and it's going to be nice that he's not going to probably take the shotty route of being really plosive and aggressive and a little bit, it can be quite tiresome in that mode clips. Where he really is really strong is his persona, isn't it? It's that cheekiness. Yeah. It's that kind of joker. And I think he'll relish the opportunity to go against you like he relished O'Shea. And I guess Quill to a certain extent as well.
Because also I think, like, for all the comments of some of his lower key battles in the States where he feels like he's just turned up for a paycheck maybe, he's always like put the effort in the UK. So, you know, there's Tony, O'Shea, Shotty, Quill, but even the 2-on-2 with DNA against Yunan and Chris Lee's, that is one of my favourite battles. I was watching it back, and they are amazing. And again, it's that personality thing of just completely diffusing it. But I feel like if he's coming all this way, he'll at least put a bit of effort in, you hope. But also it's interesting because it's clips, it's a different fan base who are going to be watching it. And so it's an exposure to a different sort of crowd. And again, it's that thing of how to play up to that, how to make it an enjoyable clash. And I don't really want to do the whole Sharon smack killer thing, because I'd rather like have fun as a joint sort of thing. So I'm really excited by the new sort of potential that just there is from this being a thing.
And I mean, all in all, being on Checkpoint 4 as a whole, I mean, crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And getting to perform in front of that sort of crowd. Because again, yeah, like I mentioned, I've just not been at a lot of the big events purely by practical reasons. But when I battled O'Shea, that was, I think, my 5th or 6th. And it was just after Big J. And I felt like the Big J battle was the first one where I actually found my stride and was able to control the crowd and enjoy it. And so was hoping to build on that, but just wasn't quite used to performing in that big room. And since then, mostly in a non-battle context, I've just got a lot more comfortable with those kind of crowds. And I'm excited to kind of bring that into it. I mean, you know, I got to do a poem for Carter Deems in front of a Checkpoint crowd. But yeah, to be able to be in that space with the level of comfort I now have in a battle arena, I think is going to be really exciting.
And I mean, yeah, cannot wait. It's an extraordinary thing to announce. Is you know, just hot off the press, and I think everyone's still slightly stunned by it, but it's going to be awesome. A final thing then, Harry, you know, really interesting and great to see that you have been kind of touring of late, yourself and your friend Chris. I'm a little bit of a Harry Baker fanboy, I got to be honest, and I was listening to Dub today.
Oh wow,
yeah, and which is Harry's kind of your miscellaneous, your kind of, you know, early musical inclinations. And I saw Chris Reed in the personnel. Is that right?
Yes,
he was part of it. So you and Chris go way back, and now you're making music and touring. It's great, awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. So we went to school together and did perform together at the ages of like 15, 16. First off, like doing, you know, like people's birthday parties, whatever, mostly like covers, but it was the sort of thing where, you know, a pop song with a rap verse was really exciting. So whether it was like Gorillaz or like American Boy or, you know, when Dizzy Rascal and Arctic Monkeys collabs, that was like our two heroes in one. So we kind of, it was very tongue-in-cheek, but it was just really fun. And then, you know, I mean, Chris is a fantastic singer, so we started to do a bit of stuff together. So yeah, there's a track on that album which we did write together. But it's been really fun coming back to rapping with music, but again with the experience of doing the spoken word poetry, and also to an extent doing the battling in terms of just writing with a verse chorus structure where it feels like it's okay to just have an emphasis on punchlines. And writing a poem, I still feel like there's a slight pressure to have a overarching narrative thread or beginning, middle and end that doesn't quite exist in a battle. I mean, it does when some people go really conceptual, but also in a battle, it's okay for that thread to be "you're rubbish, I'm great." And so there's more of an emphasis on punchlines and reactions. And so doing the show with Chris, especially starting to do it to the sort of poetry crowds and then more of the comedy audiences, it was really fun to just see people appreciating the wordplay in a new kind of way, and just having fun with it. And it's a different kind of energy performing on stage with someone else. And again, having diverse chorus thing means there's breaks. And so, you know, a solo poetry show is me talking for an hour, whether it's, you know, 5-minute poems with breaks and it's quite chatty, it's still on you to kind of hold the whole room. So I really enjoyed doing the joint stuff with Chris, just because it's fun having a mate with you. And so touring was amazing because we got to travel around the country. We're actually doing Don't Flop's first comedy event. I think that's going to be the same week as Checkpoint. So we're doing like a kind of feature set, and that'll be interesting because again, I mean, I'm sure I said this first time around, what I like about the Don't Flop crowd is the attention to detail they have on wordplay, and whether it's in pun joke form or in bar screwface reaction form, people are listening out for the lyricism. And so I think it'd be really fun to do some of these songs in that context, because you know, you do it in a comedy kind of gig and people get some stuff, they don't get other stuff, but you're not gonna stop a song and complain that you've been slept on. It's a different sort of crowd. But I think that'll be really fun to see how people take it, because I think, yeah, it feels like a new project and it's quite exciting and feels like it's headed in a slightly different direction. But yeah, it's just been really fun to perform, because also on the tour we did a mixture of venues where I've done poetry before, and I mean, we played in the Roundhouse in the same room where the Don't Flop event was, so that was more of a like proper theatre space. And then also up in Manchester, we just played this like 80 capacity but like standing music venue, which is just like the sort of place I don't get to do poetry often. So that was really cool, having the music, having a proper, you know, fold back monitor with a guy at the mixing desk kind of set up. And again, it gives it a different feel. So it's just been really fun taking it to new audiences. I guess similarly in the way that battle rap has been fun compared to poetry, seeing different people react, this feels like another project, and there's a common thread throughout that is basically me pissing about making puns, but it's really fun to see the different places and the different ways you can do that.
And I mean, I've been admiring you on YouTube, your guys' videos and stuff like that. Are you going to like officially release music, put it on Spotify, Bandcamp, or what?
Yes, so we went up to the Edinburgh Fringe last year with the Harry and Chris show, and that's what we've been touring this spring. And so on the final date of that tour, we recorded the gig live. So hopefully we can cut it up, because when we've got CDs that we kind of sell, but that's not yet made its way online. And what was quite nice is, having done the whole tour, it got a lot more slick in terms of the in-between kind of pattern that we have, and also performing. You know, you never get to do a battle twice, but doing songs or poems is quite nice because you get used to where people react and that kind of thing. And so the hope is, if that comes across okay on the kind of audio, that will go up on Spotify. And then we're doing another show up at the Fringe this year, and so I think in my head we'll then combine the two and do a proper album from it. But until then, we'll chuck some live tracks up, because we've got a couple of decent videos now, which is quite good, but I'd love to have the tracks up as well, because obviously different people listen in different ways. And it's interesting, like selling CDs at gigs, because it feels like some people, you know, fewer and fewer people listen to CDs, and it's that interesting thing of, we did have some USB sticks, but it just doesn't feel as nice. You know, it's nice having a CD, and it's obviously getting it in digital form is going to be a lot easier for a lot of people to get it.
So I guess finally, man, I should ask, how do people get at you? Twitter, how do they follow you on all these social medias and such?
So Harry Baker Poet on Twitter and Instagram, or just Harry Baker Poetry on Facebook is the sort of page, but kind of all of them will link to other ones, hopefully. And then with Harry and Chris, it's Harry and Chris, like fish and chips, because various combinations of Harry's and Chris. have taken other things. But yeah, or actually we've got a website now, harryandchris.com, which then links through to other stuff. But hopefully we're getting to the point. I'm definitely the number one Harry Baker now if you search it. Currently, if you search Harry and Chris, Blondie members, Debbie Harry and guitarist Chris Stein,
right,
are currently just above us on a couple of vids, but we've got more coming up. So yeah, if you just search for stuff online, hopefully you can find it. But you might just have to add poetry at the end or something. But yeah, so we're going back up to the fringe with some new stuff. And yeah, it's looking exciting.
That's great. It's great to hear, man. So yeah, this has been awesome, Harry, as ever. Thank you so much for joining me, man. This has been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
No worries, man. So I'll wrap up just by saying follow us at Battle Resume, patreon.com/battleresume.com. And I mean, go watch Harry Baker's poetry. Are you ever going to do any more just like pure poetry shows in the future, or?
Yes, definitely. I think at the moment the Harry and Chris stuff is taking focus, but I've got some poems I'm working on, and I mean in amongst the shows I still do some gigs. So yeah, Harry Baker Poetry is probably the best way to find that on Facebook. But yeah, working on some new poems, still performing the old ones. So yeah, if you're about, try and check it out. I mean the next gig I've got is at Cambridge Literature Festival, which feels like it's quite a literary crowd, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's really fun. I do a lot of stuff in schools at the moment where I get to go in and kind of do workshops and perform with the kids, so that kind of gives it a bit of new life. But yeah, I'm still doing a mixture of stuff. I still really enjoy the variety of it.
All right, dope. Well, Harry, thank you as ever, man. Cheers, bro.
Wicked. Cheers.